So today we're doing a deep dive into one highly concentrated source. It's an address from September 16th, 1979 by Reverend Sun Myung Moon, and it's titled, Let Us Analyze Ourselves. And our mission really is pretty straightforward. We're going to explore why this speech claims that if you want true, lasting victory, both for yourself and, historically, you have to shut up and work.
That's right. And this wasn't some sterile lecture hall. This was at Belvedere, an estate in New York, in front of about 1,000 members of his movement.
Okay.
And you have to understand, these people came from every possible background. Some happy, some in deep, deep trouble, healthy, sick, you name it. And the speaker, he just immediately sets up this core tension.
Okay, so let's unpack that. He creates a kind of binary choice right out of the gate.
He does.
You have those who seek to advertise their circumstances, who need to explain and justify everything. And then you have the others, the reserved, silent ones, who just persevere.
And the whole point is that only the second type wins the long game. The central question is all about respect and long-term effectiveness.
So the talkative person is the one who's always broadcasting their pain.
Exactly. They're seeking quick explanations for their difficulties, and in doing that, they actually cause worry and unhappiness for everyone around them, their parents, siblings, their neighbors. They become sort of an emotional drain on the whole system.
And he calls them shallow, suggesting they lack any kind of internal weight because they're so quick to speak out.
Whereas the person who gets respect, they have what he calls internal sustaining power.
Right.
They're reserved, they're silent, and they're confident they can handle things without needing, a public announcement.
What's fascinating to me is how he connects that to historical attention. This is the ones with the quick, easy explanations soon disappear from sight.
Yeah, but the person who doesn't expose their internal world so quickly, the one with hidden depth, they remain attractive.
Yeah.
That reticence, it holds your attention out of just pure curiosity.
You stick around because you sense there's more going on under the surface.
Exactly. There's more to them than what they're letting on.
And to illustrate this, he draws this really striking, and you have to admit, pretty dated contrast between men and women.
Very 1979, yes.
He suggests that historically, women had a greater tendency to explain their situations, using beautiful adjectives in romantic letters. He describes them as always moving, needing an anchor line.
Right, but that analogy is really about internal stability. The man's role, the anchor line, is defined by tough looks and closed lips.
It's a symbol.
It's a symbol for weight, for dignity, for trustworthiness. The point isn't really about gender, it's about character. If you're always justifying your position, you're the one in motion looking for an anchor. If you're silent and persevering, you are the anchor.
So it's internal weight versus external justification.
Precisely. And if you look at the historical outcome, it's the talkative people who generally lose the battle and fade away.
And who governs?
It's the thinkers, the people of few words. The gigantic contributions to history, he argues, were made by those who were busy dreaming and thinking. The reticent ones. Not the ones busy talking and looking for sympathy.
That sets a really strong baseline for character. But then the address takes it up a level, connecting this personal silence to a religious virtue.
Right. He says that truly religious people are people of few words because their energy is focused inward, on prayer and meditation.
As opposed to non-religious people, who are always trying to excuse and justify their actions.
And this is where he brings in the Bible. He says the core virtues taught there, perseverance, patience, endurance, they all require a kind of silence. They demand that you forget what your adversary did wrong, and in the most difficult command of all, you learn to love one's enemy.
And if we connect that to, say, public life or social engagement, that's a pretty profound statement on strategy.
It is.
He's suggesting that if you're always talking back to an enemy or trying to justify yourself, people will actually get tired of it and abandon you.
You're giving your enemy power by constantly reacting. The correct position when you're under attack is silence and sticking to the standard of love. And if you can't live up to that standard, if you can't forgive them, well, the wisest thing to do is just not talk too much.
And you can see how this personal rule scales up. He applies it directly to national leadership, using the United States as the example.
He does. He says a nation needs leaders who are thinkers, people of few words, with that deep, quiet ability to persevere. A leader who gets upset and instantly reacts to every little political jab is showing they're shallow. They're unfit for the job of, embracing 240 million Americans.
It creates this idea of charismatic silence.
Yes. Think about a national crisis. If a leader doesn't immediately run to the microphone with quick, empty words, but instead just looks on wisely, thoughtfully, the people will be glued to them. They'll be charmed by that dignity.
But that raises a big question. If a leader is silent, how do they actually show a loving heart? Isn't communication key?
It is, but the source argues the best communication is quiet. It's done through actions, not promises, through showing you're dedicated and unselfish and concerned for the nation's future. The public, eventually, will recognize that, and history will approve of the person who put public purpose over their own ego.
So then he moves beyond the national leader to the ultimate public figure, which is God. And he takes this idea of silence to a cosmic scale.
He really does. God is described as the most public-minded being under the sun, and because of that, God keeps the greatest silence of all.
That's a staggering concept.
It is. Think about it. God, according to this, never loses hope. Even when his blueprint for creation, Adam and Eve, was destroyed, or when his own son, Jesus, was crucified, he just remains silent through ultimate heartbreak.
And he says that if God were to actually explain all of his suffering, we wouldn't be able to handle it.
None of you would be able to bear it. The sheer weight of it would just crush us.
This ultimate silence, then, this public-mindedness, leads to a really interesting definition of good and love. When God was creating the universe, he kept saying good. But he only said, "Behold, it is very good," when he saw Adam and Eve. What was the big difference?
The difference was the potential for a dynamic interaction, for love, for give and take. It was the creation of an object that God could love, which fulfilled his deepest desire. And this love, he argues, is so huge it can literally wrap up even God and float him away.
Wow.
God exists in this view for the excitement and longing of that love.
What I find most powerful, though, is what he defines as very good. It's not just two beautiful people loving each other.
No, not at all.
He says true beauty and excitement come when the object of love transforms the subject. He gives this radical example. When a beautiful woman loves an ugly man, that is really very good.
That's a crucial teaching moment. The value isn't in how attractive the object is. It's in the unconditional depth of the love being given.
So love defines the value, not the other way around.
Exactly. And that's the foundation for universal joy. When you have different groups, black, white, yellow people, people of all degrees of attractiveness, when they can all genuinely laugh together with the same happiness, that diversity in love is what God called very good.
It's a vision that requires, well, it requires that sustained, silent perseverance to ever achieve. And to bring that cosmic idea back down to the individual, he uses his own life as an analogy, his growth over 30 years.
Yeah, he argues that he always just moved forward in a straight line of focused, persevering effort. And God, seeing that effort, used the length of that line as the diameter of a constantly expanding circle.
And that circle is his growing territory and stature.
Right. The lesson is that the silent, unselfish way of life is the only one that truly lasts and, constantly extends its influence.
Which brings us to the simplest, most direct path to becoming godlike. And that's adopting a sacrificial spirit.
Silently seeking to sacrifice for the public good. And a sacrifice, by its very nature, has to be silent and obedient.
He uses that stark analogy of the animals on the altar.
Yeah, the cow, the lamb, the pigeons, they are used for offerings, and they are silent, even in their final moments. Their silence is their total obedience to that higher purpose.
And this connects directly to the working environment of the members of his movement, the Unification Church.
It does. The instruction was clear. Stay silent and composed, even when you're being mistreated. Dirty looks, spitting, hitting, even physical violence.
And instead of reacting,
you stay busy with the positive public work of building the kingdom of heaven. You keep your composure, and the high-quality, influential people watching will see your true value. It's a path of great difficulty. Long hours, maybe eating, standing up, going without basic things.
And why the constant pressure? He frames it as parental love.
Exactly. Parents push their kids hard in school, not because they're mean, but because the goal, the child's success, is too high to allow for relaxation. The same logic applies to the spiritual mission.
And this commitment to silent deeds over words. I think it's best shown in that famous anecdote he shared, the tuna fishing test.
Oh, it's a fantastic story. For 3 years in a row, he set new tuna fishing records in Gloucester, Massachusetts. This is a port famous for fishing for centuries, and he's consistently beating the seasoned local professionals.
And not by boasting, not by arguing. It was through measurable action that just completely defied the local culture.
He was waking up at 2 in the morning
2 a.m.
and staying out until 7 at night. It's this relentless pace that the professional fishermen, they just couldn't sustain it day after day. His silence was the discipline behind the action.
And he didn't just outwork them. He outthought them. He invented a new, more efficient fishing method.
Right. He moved away from the traditional pole and nylon lines. And what's really astonishing is the result. Within a few years, all tuna fishing in Gloucester had adopted his new method, the one he introduced silently.
And the impact wasn't just operational, it was economic.
Huge. His team's focus on preservation was so good that the Japanese importers, the major buyers, they started demanding that their suppliers process tuna like the Moonies do.
Because it was always the freshest.
Always the freshest. This silent work literally changed a century-old industry and spiked the price of tuna from 10 cents a pound to $1.75.
The lesson is just. It's undeniable. Deeds speak.
And the final command is absolute. Do not explain your personal circumstances. The only time discussion is allowed is after 10 or 20 years of continuous silent work without results. Complaining before that is just making all kinds of noises like an empty drum.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The final review of this wise way of life is this constant, moment-by-moment evaluation of every situation.
You have to determine the unselfish, public purpose, and then you prioritize that above everything else.
It requires adhering to a really strict hierarchy. The ultimate goal is the supreme public, which is God. And to reach that, you have to sacrifice the smaller purpose for the larger one.
The earthly world is sacrificed for the spirit world, and even the spirit world is ultimately sacrificed for God's cause. This demands total, dedicated energy.
You have to dedicate every single ounce of your energy for that public purpose, even to the point of exhaustion. Let your accomplishments, like the Gloucester tuna, speak for themselves.
Until then, the requirement is an iron will, just pushing forward with the unshakable determination of a rock. Your value isn't measured by how eloquently you can describe your struggles. Your stature is measured by the size of that expanding circle created by your silent, straight line of effort.
And so here's the provocative thought to take with you, based on the extreme challenge posed in the address itself.
It's a huge one.
The speaker urged those who were engaged in his movement to write a letter to their fiancé or fiancée. And in it, they were to state, "If I don't write to you for the next 6 months, I want you to understand that I am perfecting my public character." So for a modern listener, the principle there is about radical prioritization. When you're faced with a choice between a personal romantic obligation and your vocational mission, which devotion actually creates a more valuable human being? Is it the partner who forgets their mission out of love for you? Or is it the one who is recognized by history and God as a public person whose accomplishments will be recorded? The ultimate choice isn't if you'll be a champion, but what kind of champion you'll be. A silent one.